Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to discuss about Visit to the Unknown from Tensei Shitara Slime Talk, and so without any ado let's begin. Visit to the Unknown, 18 Rescue Part 1. Michelle was in despair. She had been betrayed by Jejil, the one friend who she trusted and could be real with. Her body could not move. Her brain had been disconnected from it, and now her own body felt like it was far away. I'm so tired, Michelle thought. When the ideals that her father had dreamed of were shattered, Michelle decided to live while hiding her true feelings. As a leader, she decided to prioritize the values of the majority over her own. Save those who needed to be saved, even though it came with sacrifices. You couldn't save everyone, but save those that you could. And in the worst-case scenario, you might have to sacrifice 100 to save one. She had that resolve when it came to politics. Kill your emotion and only act based on the logic of numbers you could trust. It was people who could do this that were fit to lead. So, no matter how much she agonized over something, she didn't complain in front of anyone. She had always acted as if what she was doing was right. And she would lead them with pride. However, it had been different with Jejil. And now she was betrayed. It dealt more damage to Michelle than she could have ever imagined. And that was why the lock to the door had broken. I don't care about what happens now, she muttered without a voice. Despair and then resignation. It seemed natural enough. But don't give up, Michelle. If you give up, the Mobius system will become uncontrollable. Her father's voice awakened her consciousness. Yes. It's too early to give up. Even though she could not move her body, her mind was healthy. The Mobius system was already running, but she could still. Besides, there was something strange about Jejil's betrayal. Yes, now that I think about it. When she thought back on it, Jejil had seemed odd. Her voice and movements were the same as usual. Michelle had occasionally said things that referenced their past as they talked. And Jejil had reacted properly every time. And so Michelle assumed that the strangeness she had felt must be nothing. However, now she considered the possibility that something she wasn't aware of was at play here. The brain was an important organ and was protected in several ways. That meant that hypnosis and brainwashing should not work, but she couldn't be completely confident about it either. After all, something similar was happening to herself currently. Perhaps Jejil had also had her brain isolated from her body and had the information stolen. In spite of knowing very little, Michelle was able to make a guess that was very close to the truth. If that's true, then I cannot give up here. Her fighting spirit burned anew, and she considered what it was that she could do now. Her body wouldn't move. The only thing that she could do now was to pray for Jejil and the resistance. However, Michelle's consciousness was combined with overwhelming energy that overflowed from her. Her thoughts now moved silently, but faster than the speed of light, towards the hearts of those she believed in. Michelle's prayer reached Jejil as well. However, it was too late to change anything. Carmen had transformed most strangely. And Jejil could no longer handle him. At first, Jejil had had the advantage with machinery arts, but now, none of the attacks could deal a finishing blow. Carmen had incredibly healing ability. It was superior to even the super beasts, and he healed immediately after Jejil dealt any damage. No. If anything, it seemed like his defense ability was improving every time he healed. Just as a broken bone is stronger after being healed, the dragonic armor seemed to react as if it were a living creature. Furthermore, Carmen showed that he could adapt to Jejil's movements. While Jejil should have been the more skilled of the two, her attacks were no longer hitting their target. Yes, it was as if he had eyes on the back of his head. He was able to deal with attacks from all directions. And it wasn't just that. She was able to place her palm on his armor, but it was poisoned. The powerful acid would burn her hand. The shock from the hits and the plasma that hit her upon contact. It was so bad that all of the previous damage did not seem like much to Jejil. The various firearms and methods of counter-attack. It was at the same level as the machinery for or even higher in terms of energy output. And this perfect defense that Jejil could not penetrate. Carmen had completely stopped Jejil's most powerful method of attack, and vibration. It took apart molecules and atoms by causing a certain area to vibrate. It was an incredibly destructive skill that was supposed to be impossible to defend against. As far as Jejil was aware, the only way to do this was to create a special barrier that rejected and sealed away any external forces. Yes, Carmen was using the ether ring barrier. What's happening? You shouldn't be able to control the ether ring barrier without the star system. You have to create ethers with the use of a linked particle accelerator, unless he recreated it. Do those strange suits they wear come with the star system installed? Jejil could not help but come to that conclusion. She didn't want to believe it, but when it was happening right before her eyes like this, she did not have much of a choice. How could the resistance of all people have access to such technology? She had so many questions, but now was not the time. As her strongest attacks had been ineffective, Jejil had no way of defeating Carmen. And before she knew it, Carmen's men had joined the fight as well. They were wearing the powered suits that should have been destroyed as they toyed with Riaz and his men. The super beasts were there as well, and the battle turned into chaos. She could not expect reinforcements or the possibility of being revived after death. And then it happened. In that split second after Jejil's attack, Carmen fired his Giga Buster, immediately evaporating the lower half of Jejil's body. As she lay there in shock, Carmen thrust out his fist like the jaw of a dragon. He was going to deal the final blow. He was right in front of her now. The fist was in front of her eyes. Jejil saw her own defeat, no, her own death. Why am I here? Fighting like this? It wasn't fear that she felt, but bewilderment. The brain that was in the bionoid had become active, and she was awakening to the free will that had been there originally. Carmen's merciless attacks had caused much of the special cells of her bionoid body to be lost. Many of her functions were shut off as the preservation of life became the main priority. The result was that the restrictions on Jejil were weakening. And so she now had doubts about her current situation. As far as she knew, she had been in a meeting just a moment ago. And yet, here she was, fighting with Carmen. This was most confusing. It was like she was in a dream. Jejil desperately resisted the cloud that was muddling her mind. And then, Jejil? Is that you? Don't give up. Regain your heart. As Jejil's consciousness resurfaced from the depths, Michelle's prayer reached her. Upon hearing those words, Jejil's consciousness returned completely. Yes. Yes. I was with Prime Minister Fyodora and... The memories came back as if she were waking from a dream. And then she remembered the things she had done when she wasn't herself. She was able to read and understand the memories that were saved. No one will believe me no matter what I say. I'm sorry, Michelle. I was not able to be of use to you. As the fist of death approached, the memories flashed in her mind. She felt waves of regret and despair. Prime Minister Fyodora had used her. Then she had betrayed Michelle, which resulted in the current predicament. But at the same time, there was a small hope. She saw it while looking at Carmen. He had defeated her. While she wasn't at the same level as the machinery 4, she was one of the strongest soldiers. With such power, perhaps they could go and rescue Michelle. With both regret and hope in her heart, Jejil accepted her death. Damn it. I am not going to give up on the goal we strived towards for so many years. Not here. No, she could not accept it. Now that she had awakened, she wouldn't give up. And she didn't need Michelle's encouragement to reach that decision. Jejil used her bionoid abilities to parry Carmen's Buster Knuckle. By sacrificing even more of her cells, she was able to protect the vital organs. And so she did not die, but now her combat abilities were practically non-existent. The battle was over. Now, she just needed to negotiate. That was supposed to be the finishing blow. Miss Jejil, you are a tough one. Humph. I could not allow myself to be killed. I remembered something. My old dreams and ideals. You really don't want to die, then? And what is this about ideals all of a sudden? You tricked us and tried to kill us. I wish I could explain everything to you. But there is no time. Would you please let me go until we rescue General Michelle? Rescue? You betrayed us and now you're trying to make excuses. Even Michelle understood how convenient it all sounded. Still, she had to persuade Carmen now, or she would not be able to help Michelle. She had to get Carmen to understand her position. You may not believe it, but I was being controlled. I want to rescue Michelle now, so will you not let me go? Let you go? You would like that, wouldn't you? As if we would believe such a story. Jejil could not blame him. Besides, Carmen had a fierce personality and was known to be merciless towards his enemies. And so she understood that there was no way that he would let her go now. However, she had to try. But then, something most unexpected happened. As she opened her mouth in order to continue the desperate attempt, Carmen suddenly looked up at the sky and froze. That. She heard him mutter, and then she looked up and saw that a black shadow seemed to be spreading in the sky. No, according to the analysis of her telescope feature, it was a Universal Strategic Reconnaissance aircraft. That must be First Lieutenant Hiragi. Yeah. I know because I partnered with Hiragi many times. But why here? Jejil and Carmen both seemed to forget the fight as they looked up at the reconnaissance aircraft. Jejil was thinking of taking advantage of the moment. Carmen wondered if it was going to interfere. However, both of their expectations were blown away in the next instant. Can you hear me? Jejil. And Carmen. Hiragi's voice boomed so loud that the air seemed to shake. Jejil and Carmen looked at each other. Then Carmen's men and Riai's and his men stopped fighting. I need you to stop and listen to me. That is what General Michel wants. And like this, an unexpected visitor put an end to Jejil and Carmen's battle. Carmen was with First Lieutenant Hiragi once again. Ah, Mr. Hiragi. So you were safe? Yes. After telling General Michel about your defeat, I received a different order from Jejil by a secret line. It said to wait for the right time and then rescue you guys. But things changed once General Michel started moving. I was told to follow you and gather information while offering support from the shadows. Hiragi said as he glanced towards Jejil. He added that there had been no need to offer support after all. Just now, a female officer who worked under Hiragi was putting the torso of Jejil into a medical capsule. It would not be able to regenerate the lost cells, but by sending nutrients to her body, her ability to self-heal would return. Jejil had told him as much. Jejil ordered you. Yes, she did. Now I remember. I did give you that order. Carmen was confused. Hiragi nodded. Jejil confirmed it. So, she really was being controlled then. That appears to be the case. It's definitely difficult to believe, but we should get on the ship now. We can talk as we head over to where General Michel is. And so Hiragi invited Carmen and his men to come with them. While Carmen wasn't completely satisfied with everything, he had known Hiragi for a long time. He couldn't believe that Hiragi would betray him, and so he decided to believe him. However, Jejil was an entirely different matter. Or so Carmen thought. Jejil, you're safe. I'm so glad that I made it in time. The mechanical voice rang once Jejil's capsule was brought on board. Carmen looked surprised. And then Jejil's eyes blinked and she muttered. It can't be. Is that you, Michel? Yes. It's thought waves. I took over this ship's operating system. What? Are you kidding? The mechanical voice said something most shocking. Could it be that some artificial intelligence was trying to trick them? No, Carmen knew that this wasn't the case. After all, while the voice was different, the manner in which it talked was clearly the same as Michel. And more than that, there was something about it that had a strong sense of authority. Huh. Carmen nodded. I see. That's a. Well, you always exceed my imagination, General Michel. Well, that's what she does. Her voice is what woke me up. So I can't complain. Carmen had a lot more that he wanted to say, but at this point, he had no choice but to believe. Judging by Jejil's shock and how she reacted as if she were seeing a ghost, he decided that she wasn't lying. And it wasn't just Jejil. Riai's and his men had also regained their own will after being exposed to Michel's thought waves. What have we been? Riai's and the others looked like they were waking from a dream. After seeing this, Carmen could not continue doubting it. He put a cigar in his mouth and scratched his head. Tisk. All right then. So, General Michel. What's the situation? Carmen finally bent. He swallowed his anger towards Jejil and decided to listen to what Michel had to say. And then he learned that Michel was currently cut off from her body. Her body was running wild and unleashing massive amounts of energy. With the encryption key that I have, I could connect Michel's brain to her body again. I have to hurry. Jejil said. But it was very dangerous for Jejil to get close to Michel in this situation. However, Jejil still intended on going. Carmen also did not hesitate. Let's go, Mr. Hiragi. We already are. And at full speed. Not only Carmen, but Hiragi, no, everyone aboard the ship was united on this. They would witness the fate of the world. While Carmen was reluctantly convinced. Christophe was also listening to Michel's voice. Now just Christophe, all the officers and men on the battlefield and all of the resistance were also listening. This was because Michel was using the immense amount of energy that was overflowing from her, to unleash the thought waves in every direction. As the thought waves were so strong, those who still had intact brains were able to return to their original selves. Of course, those who were just following orders would now obey Michel. As for the resistance, Sharma had told them that Michel was an ally, and so they quickly realized that something strange was happening. Thankfully, Zaza was quick to believe. Stop fighting. This is without a doubt the voice of Michel. Because of Feldera, Zaza could no longer be shaken so easily. And so he was able to accept all of this as if it were a mundane part of his everyday. In a way, you could say he had been poisoned by Feldera. But for now, it was working in a good way. As the Resistance's largest fighting force that Zaza was with had now stopped fighting, the Empire was also able to settle down. And so the battle came to a close without too much chaos. Once the fighting was finished, they were able to detect the release of unbelievably high power energy coming from the city. And with that realization, came the certainty that continuing to battle now would be foolish. Both the Resistance and Empire were in agreement on this. I'm worried about Michel. We have to go and find out what is happening. It was as if Zaza's words represented the will of everyone present. And then, they all decided to head to that location. It was there that they would bear witness to something they could never have imagined. Thank you for watching. Like, share and subscribe for more content.